Hi, everyone. My name is Shannon Sarikaku, and I'm the Guest Services Coordinator at the Los Angeles Asian Pacific Film Festival this year, presented by Visual Communications. Welcome, everyone, to C3 Converse, presented by Nielsen. We just had a really great conversation with the team from I'll Meet You There. So thank you to Iram and your cast for the great discussion and all of your insights. If you haven't seen it yet, it's playing throughout the weekend, so the viewing window is going to be open until Sunday evening. So definitely do check out our website. You can get more information on festival.vcmedia.org. And fun fact, I actually worked on a project with Iram years ago at Caltech, and that was via connections to this festival. So this is like a really important community that I'm always happy to come back to. And thank you everyone for joining us today. It really means a lot for you to be here and supporting. So without further ado, let's get on to our next conversation.
Awesome. Thank you, Shannon. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Los Angeles Asian Pacific Film Festival, produced by Visual Communications. My name is Jeremy. I'm a programmer at the festival, and today I'm zooming into you all from downtown LA, but I want to recognize that I am on land belonging to the Tongva people. If you would like to have closed captioning, we're dropping a link in the chat right now. Click on it, and it will bring you to a new window, and you can open the audio transcript. We'd like to thank everyone for all their support to making this festival possible, and a huge special thanks to the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences, Sony Picture Entertainment, Comcast, NBC Universal, the California Arts Council, SAG-AFTRA Producers Industry Advancement and Cooperative Fund, the National Endowment for the Arts, HBO and Warner Media, and a really special thanks to all of our community partners, organizations who continue to support visual communications. So let's start our artist conversation. I'm really excited today to be able to talk with these people. So please welcome the director of Accept the Call, Eunice Lau, and from the film, Yusuf Abdurrahman. How are you guys doing?
Good.
Looking very much forward to our conversation today. Really excited to talk to you both about the film. Eunice, I want to start with you. How did you first learn about Yusuf's story, and how did you both get connected?
Well, when the news broke about the arrest of Yusuf's son and his friends, and I felt like it was a story that I wanted to sort of get onto, and through and we did get in touch with a few of the parents subsequently in the following weeks and months, and worked out the access. And one of the first family to actually agree to be interviewed and to be filmed was Yusuf's family through his daughter, Ikran. Well, who was the first person we met. And through her that, I was introduced to Yusuf.
Wonderful. I was actually going to ask you later if you had reached out to any of the other family members that are mentioned in the documentary. And I assume that they all said no, or you decided once Yusuf was on board, you just sort of wanted to tell one story, one of the family stories?
Yeah, initially we talked to 3 families, but I just felt that it was, stronger if we can focus the story on one family and tell it through it, more intimately. I think sometimes, more does not mean better. So in this case, it was an editorial choice as well, Yeah.
Nice. So a lot of documentary filmmakers always get asked the question, how do I get the person I'm filming to trust me and trust me with their story? And since we have Yusuf here today, I kind of want to ask Yusuf, what was it about Eunice's approach or conversations with you that you decided that you would trust her with this very personal story?
First of all, I thank you for your invitation and for your support of the film and also the Asian Festival.
Thank you.
And welcome there.
Our pleasure.
They accepted the call. My daughter Ikran introduced me Eunice. They talked first, and I met Eunice, and I met her several times before I accept her. Every time she kept coming back and asking me about if she can do a film documentary about my story and the story of my family. And she has been always open and honest, and like they say, the first impression is always,
Right.
So the way she approached me and the way she talked to me, and also the the documentaries that she did into refugee camps with the Somalis and the approaches that she made and how she was not doing too much to the culture. I mean, go and talk to the moms and refugee camps and also the way she portrayed the people in refugee camps in Somalia and their problems. I watched that documentary and I thought about Eunice as kind of unique person that won't portray me, or I trust her to my family and the story of my son, and
Nice.
So and she always keep coming back. By the time we start, she always just comes back and just says, "So what do you think about this?" When she recorded and documented me doing stuff or showing her about the story of my son and my feelings and their feelings, and she says, "Is this okay with your culture? Is this all right if I do it this way?" And so we used to joke and just say, "Am I your co-director now?" We are that close.
Nice.
Right.
Awesome. So then before Eunice had come to you and your daughter Ikran, had you ever thought about that you would want to make this story of yours so sort of public in this documentary form?
No. It was traumatizing. I mean, the whole thing was, it was a terrorist case, and my son was indicted, and I had some kind of in a mood of numbing, and didn't want to share the story to anyone at all.
What kind of what was the conversation with Zachariah like when I assume you approached him, about this film? Was he hesitant first too, or?
I mean, we used to talk about politics. We when he was, I think it started from 15 years old or 14 years old. He's really smart kid, and he loved the geography and we love traveling as a family. We travel back and forth. So he always talked about policies in this country, racism, things like that, geography around the globe, and about 15, 16 now is about the faith itself. Talking about something that I do, or something that he does, places that he goes, people that he hang out with, and in the parks or in the mosques, things like that. So we always talked, but in the conversation in the film was kind of reflection to me, things that I've been saying him when he was free and he was little and he was, outside. Now he realizes that time is up, he's behind the bars and the things are coming back to him. He was real mad for the whole thing for the first time until later on, because I used to go visit him at all times.
Right.
And I'm only his resources. There's not much, a lot of resources in the prisoners, books about the faith or about the culture or things that, that he wants to read, to kind of to sit down and kind of think about what he did and how he just do things better and later on. So I used to visit him at all times and talk to him and just remember what I used to say, So he, for the first few months, he was mad. He was real mad until later on he realizes. And he met different people in the prison too, that helped him a lot, different Muslims, different Christians, different Jews, different people, Native Americans, all kind of different people that thought about, well, why are you here? And when he said about, I was trying to leave, so what? What is that? A lot of people don't understand the concept of the war and terror and things like that, So he met elderly people from Middle East, people from Egypt and Sudan that tell him about, listen, we saw your dad in the movie, not movie at the time, but in the news and newspapers and what he said, and and I don't know where you get this idea. He's right. You're supposed to follow him and just listen to him. So that give him some kind of if you wish, the radicalization things, if you wish, that has the term is big, but that is what people use. If you have some kind of extreme ideology, so that give him the past, about the anger that he had, for the whole issues, the anger that he had on me. So bit by bit, he started just thinking about it by reading books, talking to the people, me going visiting him and talking to him. I was real mad at him too, but I realized, it wouldn't do any good, So it was up and down, but finally we just get together and and come in a solution and hug him and kiss him, and culturally we never say we love you to the kids, we don't hug, we don't kiss. Maybe we just for us to show love in our culture is to provide food and clothing and kind of smile at them and taking them to places, and that is to show love. But basically what I learned in lately is about the emotional, show the emotional way of men. Mostly don't show any emotional stuff, in general. And when they are young, like 17, 18, they have their own world, So to just hug him and kiss him, that changed me a lot, Just show him not the way that I grew up with. Things are different. This is an American kid that was born here. And by him seeing other parents and people just telling him, you're looking good, you're nice, you're intelligent, we love you, keep up, good job. We don't say those kind of stuff. That is what he was missing,
Oh, very nice. I think what you just mentioned, I think that arc, that character arc almost for you and Zachariah is really well defined in the movie. Curious, Eunice, how that came about in the editing process, and what sort of maybe first cuts were like, and how you found both of their stories.
I think, when I first started filming or telling this story, I had no idea where it was going to lead us or how it was going to end. And I think that, in a way, we only knew, the little discoveries that we made along the way. And it really was, I was more interested in capturing the emotions and the journey. And one of the things that I discovered, I think maybe about 3 months into filming, was the fact that, Yusuf was actually so upset with what he learned in court about what happened to his son, that he actually didn't want to see him for a while in prison. So, and I had to tease that out of him, because initially he was giving me all kinds of excuses why he wasn't seeing his son. And I felt that was actually, to me, really interesting because of the fact that, it's a hurt. It's a very deep hurt. And I wanted to explore what that meant for a father to see his child straying away from him. And, but I also had to sort of let him sort of take his time to getting back to being in touch with his son, and to be able to, begin a conversation because he was so anguished by, traumatized by what happened. Both of them were traumatized. Everyone in the family were. I think, we had to basically, hang back and just capture that trauma in its own time, and not push it and just be patient, which is why it also took us a long time to complete the film, and to come to the point where we did, and then we can feel like, maybe this is closure or not. But the journey continues, of course. But so the way we structured it, there was a lot of, and in our first cut, really, we had too many characters in the film. We did a test screening, and we were basically said, no, what really moved everyone was the story of Yusuf and his son and Ikran, and everything else didn't really matter. So we basically recut the film and really just focusing on, the intimacy of the family. So there were a lot of things that we covered that couldn't make it into the film, unfortunately, even though they were very good, narratives as well. But we have to basically think about the power of the film. What do we want to do with it to basically, in a way that, tell a story that moves, the audience? How do we elicit that? And so we kept coming back to the same thing that says the narrative of the father and the son is very powerful. So that's why we kind of, restructured it to sort of just anchor it on them.
How long did you end up filming for total?
Well, I started in April 2016, right after I got the grant from ITDS. And so that's when the trial was kind of, starting. So we kind of followed the process through until the sentencing in November 2016, and subsequently the 2 years after when Zach was in prison. So we actually, filmed it for almost 3 years, because I think we stopped in about 2019, beginning of. So yeah, it was 3 years of filming and editing along the process.
Gotcha. Back to editing, one of the things that I really loved in the editing, and I don't know, I'm assuming it came out, what point in the editing process it came out, but your interstitial B-roll shots, like you had a lot of beautiful aerial footage of the Twin Cities and other just really beautiful B-roll that was used really nicely throughout the movie and used over some really great voiceover by Yusuf and Zachariah. And like just the whole tone of the piece, it's a really powerful and it's a really emotional story. But when I was watching the movie, I found just the tone very meditative. And so I'm wondering, especially with those B-roll shots, when that came about in the editing process and how you struck this really, really beautiful tone in the movie.
You're totally right in your choice of word of describing it, that was what we're kind of going for, that meditative effect, because it's such a complex film, and at times we struggle. How do we tell the story in a way that breaks it down for the audience who may not understand, the complexity of Islam, the different school of thoughts, like how do we process all that on top of it, the backdrop of 9/11, the sort of injustice against Black, the discrimination that Zach was feeling. So this politics, and religion, and plus something that's very foreign to a lot of non-Somali audience, which is the culture of Somali. And we're also talking about, so many issues, right, between like immigrant and the American-born children and that tension. So how do we do that? So I think there were times when we felt like we just need to sort of let the story breathe, and let the audience sort of take in what we have just, given them in the scene before, and slowly just easing them into, out the sort of the next scene or issues that, we're talking about. But, we also, without sort of, in a way that's coherent and just giving them that sense of like, that calm, like it's like cleansing a palate, sometimes we call it, but, and just being in the moment with Yusuf as well, just sort of like that pause to take in how he was feeling and absorbing his emotion in the room, and it's not just about the words that we're trying to convey. It really is also about their emotions, that latent, that you don't usually get to sort of, the feeling of him, is just as important as, listening to what he has to say.
Definitely. It was very beautifully done. Yusuf, you said you got to offer a lot of input sort of throughout this process. Did that include watching any rough cuts of the film prior to the finished product? And curious what your opinion of the piece was, as it always does evolve so much in the editing process.
Right. Well, what Eunice and her crew used to do was they come. I mean, they had some issues keeping me up anyway, because I cut my hair at all times, and she used to get mad at me. In winter I just leave my hair up, and during the summer I just make it bald. And she says, "We coming back. Just keep it this way." And when she come, it's totally different. So she used to be mad at me at that. But yes, she come. She started videoing and filming, and she goes back. And when she comes back, and she let me kind of just watch and just see, what do you think about this? Yes, at all times. Yeah. So that's the trust between me and her crew,
It's great. That's great that it shows that you're able to work so closely together because of the finished project.
Right.
You do some, like, one of the other great, this movie is a really tight 83 minutes. And in that 83 minutes, you have, 3 story arcs, actually. One of them, the third one I'll get to in a second. This buildup of emotion, like you mentioned earlier, explaining sort of these nuances in the differences in different Islamic faiths, talking about, the racism and immigration and all that stuff. How long was your longest cut, and how difficult was it to get down to where you are now?
God, yeah, how they say that in documentary, 75 minutes is the new 90. So, constantly we have people telling us, pushing us back to make it shorter rather than longer. And of course, the first cut was, we were always very conscious to try and keep it within 90 minutes, to be fair. So I think that, in the final sort of shaving off, I said, I can't do it anymore. 83 is really the, without taking
83 is very good.
So it was kind of painful even just taking 5 minutes off because everything is so tight. Mm-hmm. So I think, at one point, probably the longest was really, like 89 or, 90 type situation. So yeah, we've always tried to keep it lean so that we don't give ourselves too much hot ache later on. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I want to talk about Tony Osman, and curious how his involvement came about. Was he very reluctant to appearing at first? Did it take much convincing, or is he does seem like the type of person that's like, yeah, put a camera on me and I'm good to go.
Yes. He's very charismatic, he talks really very well, very intelligent young man. And so we were kind of fortunate because in the process of filming, he actually first appeared on Fox News, talking about the fact that, outing himself as an informant. And so we approached him, and then we said Yusuf would really like to meet him, which, was the case when we showed Yusuf his interview. And then we also verified with Zach that he actually remembered or met with Tony, that Tony wasn't just, talking because he wanted the attention. And he was like, yeah, I've met this guy. So he verified that, that everything is in a way what Tony said. When we sort of, he met up with Yusuf, but I also met up with him separately before that, just to sort of, get his story. And I think he had a lot of, in a way, empathy for what happened to the boys. He didn't think it was fair and he did not know that was the goal, was to put him away for so long. But he really genuinely felt that, if he were to help the FBI, it was a good thing because he was saving the boys from throwing their lives away. And so I think that, he could have told someone in the community, but who could he trust in the community? So it wasn't in a way as easy as that, so I think that, it was very brave of him to speak out as he did. And, I'll hand it over to Yusuf to talk a little bit more about, how his interaction with Tony is. I think that a lot of things that Tony told him, he kind of concurs with him, right, Yusuf?
Yeah, Yusuf, same to you. Yep. Talking about Tony Osman, and I was curious also. I found him to be very honest and very forthcoming in the film. And I'm just also curious if you felt that's your impression of him as well.
The first time he was in the news, he was in the Fox News, you know, just saying why the government was after these boys. Why don't they go the big fish? So that just it was very interesting to me to know what a big fish is. What he was talking about in the news. So I went to him, and he was honest. He has shown us about that he was recruited in young age and went to Afghanistan, and he had so many pictures of him while he was like 9 years old. I think it was his mom and his father-in-law, and I think that by him just coming up and saying this in public, I want him to go and ask if he ever met my son, you know, and what he did. And so he said, yeah, you know, I was told my handlers to go and just get those kids, and he and his cousin, Amir Mishal, which he was captured from Somalia, and he was brought back to Minnesota here, but this was not his estate, you know. He's supposed to be in jail, but but he was brought up here, and he said, well, both of us were recruiting with these Somali boys and kind of cut their hair and give them some food and just showing him some YouTube about ISIS and things like that. And you know, so he was honest by just telling me what he did and what was his involvement, and I think at the end what he says was, you know, these people killed my own dad too, and I was looking for justice for my dad. So in a way, he was doing this so that he can get benefit and get a justice for his dad and those who kill his dad. You know, and you know, in that case, I see it in two ways. You know, he helped these younger boys recruited and persecuted and put them in jail so that he can benefit. You know, but in a way, he kind of stopped them also going over there in Syria and die in foreign lands. So it's somehow I was mad when he was telling me all this. First he was okay, I'm fine, and I was all right. But when he said about, you know, I did this because of I want justice for my dad too, you know, that just hit me, you know.
Yeah, again, the movie does a great job sort of intertwining all these nuances as part of this story. You know, I also think, you know, he also has a character arc sort of throughout the movie, and I think because you've got that amazing interview with him at the end where I think he's in his apartment and he's talking on the phone and he's just talking and brings up a lot of emotions and he starts crying. I assume
Right.
Is that one of those just you happen to be filming him that day and that was great, that's what you got, or did you know that he was going to start talking very personally about his own story?
No, I mean, he's always shared his personal story with me, and he wanted it to be a bigger part of the film as well. He wanted it to be, and you know, the backstory of how Tony got involved with FBI was because he turned to them and said, I want you to look into, you know, the murder of my father, you know, by the jihadists. It's a very complicated story, and you know, but they said, okay, in return, you're gonna help us inform on this kids in this mosque that your cousin Amir Mashar, you know, is sort of involved in. And so that was basically, you know, according to him, this how he got involved with the FBI. So I guess, you know, that day when I interviewed him and to talk about, like, to understand more about how the boys were indoctrinated, and we also talked, and I just asked him the question, and I didn't expect him to, you know, the reaction was, you know, he started crying, and he started talking about how, because he grew up here, he's born here in New York, and when he saw the picture of, you know, the Twin Tower attack, you know, it it was very emotional for him because this is his home that's under attack. So, and he was so outraged that it was carried out by jihadists. And so that was really actually what he was crying about, besides, crying for the injustice that had happened to his father, that nobody had actually, been brought to justice for, the murder, which he believed the murder of his father. So I think that, it was not expected, but at the same time, I think that, we definitely felt like, we didn't want his story to complicate what is really a very complicated story. So we kind of didn't include all of that, but his story itself is really powerful and fascinating and sad and tragic. And I think that's also kind of what moved Yusuf when he told Yusuf his story of, how he was involved as well and how his father died. And I saw that parallel between, Yusuf's, Tony's desire to sort of, the sort of father and son story that he has, connecting and avenging his father, versus Yusuf and his son, trying to find their way back. And I thought it was just really, really wow, interesting parallels.
Yeah, it's a very, very striking moment. It's a very powerful point in the movie. And also another strong sort of aspect of this movie is that, you realize it's Yusuf's, it's Zachariah's, it's Ikran's, it's Tony's, it's their story. And you are very sort of, as a director, like very removed from the, on screen. And I'm curious, is that your intention from the beginning, or did you ever plan on, maybe I'll do a sit down interview and I'll ask questions, or is it strictly sort of more hands off from the beginning?
Definitely, because I was very conscious of the fact that, this is not my story to tell. I have, and I wanted to I feel like if we really want to understand what happened to Zach and what happened in the context of America, we should really let them tell their story with as little interference as possible. And my job really is to, structure it and string their story together in a way that's coherent and that, and just crafting, using my skills as a filmmaker, to sort of tell their story. But otherwise, let them be. It's a little bit like, how when we talk about working with actors and how they take on, the characters, and it's a lot about just being. So the same thing with documentaries. I feel my approach has always been to sort of treading very lightly, and it's also when you are like playing more the role of an observant that you actually pick up things, and instead of being intrusive and saying, but don't you think, we should do this and that? Hell no, so you sort of make them think what you think and seduce them to your point of view, which is really not the point. And then, what do we actually learn in the process? I'm not interested in, like I always say to people, this is not about what I think. It's really about the story. Of course, there's also an element of what I think, and of course I feel very strongly about the injustice as I see, that was unfolding, that, abuse that, Zach and Tony, Ikran and Yusuf and the whole Somali community have, experienced when they were like, growing up and here in America. So that is definitely something that I felt that needs to be part of the story, because I feel strongly about it. And of course, in the aftermath, what happened with, George Floyd and all, it was no surprise to us, So, I think this is actually a right moment for us in the way to really listen to what Zach had to say about what it was like for him to grow up as a, Black young man in Minnesota.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that observer point is very interesting. Yusuf, did you find that with Eunice being more of an observer, that you were able to be more open and honest? And was there ever times where you even maybe forgot sort of that the cameras were there, or is it sort of always in the back of your mind?
No, there's sometimes that I just keep talking without knowing that Eunice and her crew are recording. When Zach calls me and we kind of have this confrontation about talking back and forth, and And sometimes I break down, without even knowing that they're there, because it's really a story that happened to me and to my family and to my son. Uh, and sometimes it's still today. I sit down and I think about what I used to write. Since the 2006, I used to write about extreme ideology that people possess and things like that, and that was just like he was real at the time young, and it was 2006, 2007 until 2008 that I used to have a newspaper in the town here that I used to write about things that I see and how I grow up and how people just drift to that and goes to the extreme. And mostly it has to do with refugee camps that people end up, and it bothers me when I see protesters on the street and, Lake Street and Minneapolis burning. That is what I used to see when protesters and things happen in Somalia and places like that. To me, it's like a war zone. So what agonizing me mostly is a letter that I wrote that I said to the Somali people here, you better watch out that the extreme people won't take your kids and take them to Somalia. And that I wrote that in Somali. And that comes back to me. I mean, I was telling people, now Syria front is open. It was Al-Shabaab first, and our youth went to Shabaab. And now I see on the horizon that something is going on. Because what most people don't understand is that some crazy fake imams get together around the globe to support a regime change, and they come up with a Islamic degree fatwa that they're saying, well, there is a jihad in Syria now. You guys, you go and help. And in this town, mosques, places, people used to talk to Oben and just saying, okay, yeah, Assad is a poacher, is an evil man and killing people, and you guys, you go and help. The government didn't say anything. So people preaching and praying and all that stuff that Assad and the Shias and all that is just this evil stuff. And these kids possess this and they had this and they took it personal. They hear this every day. After a year or so, the government says, well, that's a terrorist people. It's a terrorist organization. Well, a lot of youth they already made up their mind. So by seeing me that, and I saw Shabab, youth went to Shabab, similar things. I said, well, yeah, I better write something about that. So I wrote a letter. I just went to the websites, in Somali websites, just saying, listen, we saw what happened, and our youth went to Shabab. Now they are going to ISIS. So you better tell them and come up and raise awareness. And guess what? Well, my kid involved in it. So I see that paper in me every day, that agonizing me, just by seeing it in my writings. And I was saying this in 2000, way back, 2013. So, there's sometimes that I just sit down and think about, I come from a place, war, refugee. And when you're outside of America, you're just saying, I'm going to paradise, America, I'm going to paradise. Then I came here, then I get Zach, then now he's going to another paradise. The concept of me coming here in a better life. He was born here, he was privileged to, born in America. And now the concept of extreme ideology, I'm going and give my life up and everything up, left to my families behind, and going there to get a paradise. So for me to compare those paradise, I'm just like, okay, all right, I don't know what's wrong with this world here. But sometimes the system helps them. So what happened is just like neo-Nazis, just like gangs, just like an example of neo-Nazis. People say all kind of stuff, grown-ups to the youth. They saying all kind of stuff, do this. They pressure them. They want them join the organizations. These kids are broken down into by seeing police brutality, racism, this, they're looking for identity, they have some identity crisis, they join them. Then when they just go kill somebody or bomb themselves or leave the country or do something real bad, they're in trouble. But the grown-ups that recruit them, they're protected by the First Amendment. I won't get in trouble. I give the literature, I do whatever I want to, because this is a country of freedom of speech. But a younger man or girl, 17 years old, 16 years old, 18 years old, when you give that radical ideology, extreme ideology, and they act upon them, they're in trouble. But not me, because the law protects me, but nobody protects them. So many things when I see, you know, I'm just like saying, this is not justice. And you see all kind of racism stuff, and the way that our kids just to see things on the street, in the playgrounds, theaters, cinemas, places that they go, what they see, I might not see it. Because I just go to my job, come back home, you know. I don't do a lot of entertainment things. I'm too old for that. But for them going there and just thinking that they're Americans and, you know, they have rights like everybody else, and they just met all kind of name calling and things like that, you know, that enrages them. That thinking them, this is not my country now. You know, what's going on with this? People just calling them, go back where you come from. And one time he said, where do I go? The hospital? You know, so in one incident that came up with, and he told this to the courts, where when he was at McDonald's with his friends, and some, you know, grown-up people, 3, 4 men with cowboy hats came and they just spit on his face. Just tell him, go back where you come from. So they have no identity, you know, they are not Americans and they are not Somalis and they're not, and we discriminate them, you know, they are not up to the culture, we don't understand each other, they have different languages and we don't speak like them, we don't act like them. So we call them names ourselves, you know, without unintentionally, you American kids, you know, you stupid. And the public just saying, well, you two black and you two this and you two immigrants. That forces them to just go somewhere. That recruiters are here and all informants are here, just telling them, okay, this country doesn't accept you. The green is greener, you know, the grass is greener the other side. Just come on in. By just me coming up and going back and reading all these documents and, you know, and the court documents in every day, that gives me a lot of chill, you know. But just going back and reading the stuff. Yeah.
Thank you for your candor, and I appreciate the same candor that you gave in the movie too, which gave so much nuance to this really sort of terrible situation that I don't think we've necessarily heard sort of that point of view or that aspect before, mainly because the media doesn't really interview the right people. So Eunice, it was great that you were able to get the family and Yusuf to do this. We're sort of nearing the end of the conversation, but I did want to ask if there's any updates with Zachariah's case. How's he doing? How's, you know, sort of your reconciliation as father and son going?
Yeah, I think I'll let Yusuf answer.
No,
that.
Go ahead, Eunice. No. Okay. Well, you know, he was moved to Illinois. He was here before. We were very glad that he was considered, that he was very close to the family, and he was here in Minnesota. And I used to visit him, you know, Saturdays, Sundays, and about an hour, you know, an hour away. So in the prison over here, what he encountered was some people that have some same radical ideology that he used to possess, and he rejected that. He used to work into the chapel, help some inmates just to understand about what got me here and put me in trouble is this ideology. So I don't want to listen to you. So they get arguments, and they get the same ideology that he was locked up. Now he met that in the same prison, and he's rejecting it, and he was transferred for that. Because of that, he was transferred to Illinois, which is kind of far, and I don't see him often. I just go to maybe Christmas or Labor Day or things like that. Now it's Corona, you go nowhere, but we didn't have the same privilege that we used to have by visiting him and seeing him. So now with this kind of law that came up, the first act of law with coronavirus, I guess, he filed a motion that he requested an early release, and we hope that the judge will consider. And I was informed by probation officer came and called me and just to me, in case he get released, are you okay with this? I say absolutely. So it's up to the judge, if he got released early or not, but we hope in the best. So that's what's new now.
That would be fantastic.
They are even considering that it was Zach who basically started the process of appeal, and the fact that they are considering it, and also the fact that Zach stated that if he were to be released, he would like to stay with his father. So we're very excited about the fact that they're even considering it. So an early release for him. So just hoping,
that's fantastic. Is there something that we, the audience, can do to support him in this? I mean, do they have like petitions, or I don't know quite how this works, but is there anything that we can do to support Zachariah in this early release potential?
I think it might be nice if friends can write a letter to Judge Davis, I guess. I don't know what else, but by just maybe he's a very powerful judge, it's up to him. But if people can just see and saw the movie and the film and all that, and just to kind of have the reaction is to write a letter to Judge Davis, just requesting the early release, COVID, some kind of compassion release,
Nice. Is that, I'm assuming he's in Illinois, Judge Davis? Is this
no,
case in Illinois?
Minnesota.
Judge.
Minnesota, okay.
Yeah. He is in Minnesota.
Great. Wonderful. I really appreciate both Yusuf and Eunice taking the time out of your day to talk to me and talk to everyone in the audience. Again, it's a really, really, really powerful film. It's a really powerful story. So thank you both for talking to us.
Thank you.
Thank you for hosting us. Thank you, Jeremy.
Thank you. And everyone else, have a really wonderful day, and be sure to check out this film. Is playing until Sunday evening. So if you haven't watched it yet, you got to watch it now. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all. Bye.